Well, hey everybody, this is Chris DeFurio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by La Marzocco, who's been making espresso machines by hand in Florence, Italy since 1927. Almost a century of making espresso machines is pretty impressive. And chances are you've worked on a La Marzocco if you've been in coffee for any time. And certainly I have. And it's been such a joy in seeing the way that they focus on their customers' needs by creating a variety of different types of espresso machines that are innovative, beautiful, and ultimately super dependable. Is a great asset to our community. That's why it's a household name in specialty coffee. Machines like the KB90 with the straight-in locking portafilters, the Linea PB, one of my personal favorites that I recommend often to coffee shops for its classic style and also just accessible and precise technology. There is so much to love about La Marzocco. Go to their website, lamarzocco.usa.com, and check out what they have to offer. Better yet, email them and reach out and have a conversation with one of their salespeople by emailing info@lamarzocco.usa.com, and they will happily talk to you about what espresso machine they make is right for you. Again, check them out, lamarzocco.usa.com. Now, today's episode is also brought to you by Espressly, who creates custom branded mobile apps for coffee shops. And independent coffee shops need to have real estate in their customers' minds, their hearts, and in their phone. When you're talking about customers who have apps and they use apps and they want to do so for coffee, you don't want to be just a dot on a map. You want to be their choice, their place for lattes and coffee and espresso and sandwiches and that fun stuff. So Espressly is a perfect option for that. There's no risk here. There's no setup or development fee. It integrates perfectly with Square, and that includes a loyalty program with Square, so your customers can take full advantage of that on the app. It really makes it easy for your customers, and that's what they're about. Seamless integration for a hospitality experience married with technology. So go and visit them over at espressly.co and have them get started on your app today over at espressly.co. Okay, everybody. Well, today we are going to be talking about something that may or may not be controversial. And I have a feeling that I have a few of these in the wings. I have some latte art thoughts that I probably will be sharing in a subsequent shift break, which may or may not be helpful. I'm thinking it's going to be helpful. But I today want to talk about phones. I want to talk about, ironically, we just talked about mobile apps on phones. I want to talk about whether or not your baristas should have a phone behind the bar. And this question comes up all the time in forums. Everybody who has created an employee manual will talk about, well, should we allow people to use their phones while on shift? And there's a lot of concern that if we don't allow them to, then we're just being, big old meanies. We're being overly micromanagey, and the phones are really important, and it feels like we're going overboard by saying no phones on bar. And then people get down to this thought of, well, what if my baristas can, do their TikTok videos and take photos of our lattes and stuff while they're behind the bar, and that'll bring people into my coffee shop, and they'll help me with my social media. And this is an interesting line of thought, and one that, I understand why it's put out there, but honestly, it's a little frustrating because it is an exercise in both admitting the problem and ignoring the problem. It's somewhat admitting the problem in the same way as when somebody asks you how you like a Christmas gift that you don't like, and you kind of pinch your voice and you say, "Oh, yeah, it's really, I love it. Look at the color of it. Wow. No, it's great. There's a tone, there's a way, there's an approach that we're putting to the phone issue that kind of gives away that we'd rather people not have their phones on the bar. And I think most operators would prefer that their baristas do not use their cell phones behind the bar, but they feel the social pressure to say, no, we'll make allowances because we don't want to seem like the uncool boss. So we're going to allow it. And then we're going to justify it by allowing them to use it in a way that benefits the business. See what I did there? I repurposed my caving in to something that I know is maybe detrimental to my overall experience in my shop. And I'm saying, no, 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 it's actually good. So you're like gaslighting yourself often with these types of things. And now it's just not about phones. It may be extending to other areas where there's an avoidance of confrontation. There's a running away from being a boss because you're afraid people are going to be upset with you. I understand. It's one of the most difficult parts of being a manager, leader, owner, is drawing a line in the sand and saying, okay, well, this is what we do not do, and here is what we actually do. And so y'all thought I was going to say do, but it didn't. I just did. Anyway, but the point is, we have a issue in coffee right now that is way bigger than we even have perspective to take in. Most of us in coffee, and in my years of working behind bar and management and leadership and barista work, it is all consuming, and the perspective that you have is so zeroed in on your shop. I will tell you from somebody who has been in the industry for quite a long time that this issue is a huge issue across the board in coffee, and it is an epidemic of distraction and aloofness. It used to be that the snobby barista was like really aggressively so. I'm ashamed to say, and maybe a product of my generation, that I was a part of the service with a sneer for a number of years because it was cathartic and it felt good. Anyway, I grew up since then, and I understand now that more than anything, the biggest issue that we have is one of engagement. Now, there's a lot you can do for engagement as a boss, as a owner, to set up a system that provides a lot of opportunities for inspiration and care. It's not just the baristas, it's everybody working together for this thing to work. However, people are way more distracted than they usually are because we have actually changed the way we do attention. And for the most part, younger generations are way more attached to their phones than previous generations. And it's not a stretch to say that it's a lot harder for people to control their phone usage, therefore to control their focus. Now, if you've set up a perfect environment, yet you allow this kind of a weaponized distraction tool to be used behind the bar, what you're not going to get is very much engagement. You're going to get spats, fits and starts, and everyone's going to be making a beeline back to the barista closet to check their phone, to be on their phone. Oops, there's a customer. Oh, sorry, it was just whatever it was, even if it was like updating the TikTok for the company or something like that. It's a bad look. Even if a manager is doing it, it is a bad look. If they're using their phone to count cups and do inventory, it still looks bad. You can't argue with the optics. And it's unfortunate. It doesn't mean that you are actively trying to ignore customers, but it's a needless distraction that I will say, I don't think cell phones belong behind the bar in terms of almost anything you could tell me about why we should have cell phones behind the bar. It's just such a cringing kind of thing to see somebody, a barista, take a photo of their own latte art and then give a drink to a customer. I can't tell you how much I hate it. To see somebody use their phone as a timer for pour overs and things like that. First of all, gross, by the way. Everyone's phone is gross and is not sanitary to use these phones on the bar and then, pretend to be, this sanitized environment where hopefully we're following food safety rules. But now we're going to take out our phone and then what are you going to wash your hands after using your phone? Okay, so let's just leave that there. And then even if a manager is using it, a customer walks in, they see this person on their phone typing away. Their first thought is not, I'll bet that person is doing an inventory check for pastries to make sure that they have enough for the weekend. No, they're probably thinking, ugh, I come in here and the barista doesn't even greet me. And it happens to be probably the most responsible and lovely person. in the company, it's just that that optic really just sets you up for failure. So I'm really a big proponent of keeping phones off the bar. Here's what I would suggest. From the get-go, you should have a policy that says no cell phones are allowed behind the bar, and they will not be used until you have a scheduled break. Now, you should be having scheduled breaks for your baristas. You can use them once on shift during a break, and that break may be short or scheduled. You really should be having a break. We had a shift break about shift breaks, actually, very meta, but you should be doing that. And that is where cell phones can be used. Same as having lunch. Now, I'm talking idealized situations here. I used to eat underneath the cash register in a little carved out space, squatting down, eating a burrito. And we all have that story, of course. And some of us are actively living that life right now. But where you can create distance from those things, the bar is not a place for you to blur the lines between personal and professional. The bar is professional. Professional interpretations through personal approaches to values that we all share is fine. Having a half-eaten burrito right next to the POS station is to me the same as having a cell phone right next to the POS station, or your giant, thermos of coffee that you're sipping this from the straw from. You don't need that to survive. I guarantee it. You're not out in the Serengeti trekking across the wilderness. You don't need that ice water to be right next to the POS because you need a little sip. It is a blurred line that is maybe inconsequential to greater issues in coffee. But when we're talking about details of service experiences, the mass of what people interpret specialty coffee experiences by are the details that a lot of us just feel like are not important. And so we just say, well, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. And it just becomes this gradual buildup of things that we've justified don't matter. And cell phones are like this giant thing that I think is representative of many other things that might be smaller. But ultimately, no cell phones behind the bar. Please put it in your bag on silent. Don't check it until you have a break. Now, if you have baristas that are concerned about people in their lives who want to get a hold of them really quickly for emergencies and they want exceptions, they can talk to you about that. However, there's always the company phone that people can give their loved ones a number to. I'm going to be on shift. I'm going to be away from my cell phone for 6 hours, for 8 hours, or whatever. And I'll be checking it only once, but I want to get an update on something that's happening with my car or with my parents or something like that. Now, there's always exceptions for emergency situations, but I would also say in your manual, tell them here are the numbers to give people to reach you at the cafe in case of emergency. That seems pretty reasonable to me. I want to throw in here another solution for cell phones in your policies where you have said no cell phones and you can check them on shift and have it on silent in your bag. It is a magnet, by the way. That's the reason why we need to have this kind of language. Otherwise, people are just going to create these touch points that they're constantly going to where you have this coffee bar, people walk in, there's no baristas because they're all congregated in the closet and they start to emerge from the closet like box turtles sticking their head out of their shell. Like, oh, is there somebody at the POS, But the thing I wanted to mention here also is the exceptions to this would be when there is official coffee shop business being conducted on a cell phone. I would prefer it if it was a iPad, something that had a cellular connection, but was large enough to be outside of the realm of assumption that it's just a personal distraction device. The phone just carries that aura with it. But if somebody has to use a phone for those things, they have to be so aware of the optics and to use it when there's no customers in the store for business purposes. Like I mentioned, if the manager wants to use it and has to use it to be on the phone with somebody who is going to fix the condenser or fix the pitcher rinser, or they're looking to see where, how many bars of pressure the machine is putting out when we're extracting because they're on the phone with their tech. All those things are different and they need to happen, but they need to happen still with discretion. So many times I've been behind the bar with a cell phone in my hand, but I am watching all the time because I don't want the customer to see me with a cell phone behind my hand, because as soon as they see me, they're going to think, what's this guy doing? And I know maybe they won't, because I'm just like, I've got this look of consternation on my face and I'm looking at a machine. I've got my arm deep into a ice bin or whatever is happening. But I can't assume. We can't afford assumptions when we are professionals. We have to provide, beyond a shadow of a doubt, an environment that says our attention is on you. And so whenever I put that cell phone in my hand as a manager, I'm always aware that there's a danger that I'm going to be perceived as somebody who is not taking my job seriously. Now, you may say that's unfair, but I think it's just the way it is. And so ultimately, what I want to say about this, I think that this is really key, and this is how I want to round out our conversation today, is that we need to take responsibility for our careers and tuning into the details of the service, of the space, of the people, the product, and craft. And in order to make progress, we need to have momentum behind us. When we allow ourselves to have time at work where it's constantly broken up by escapism, we are not engaged in the process of building momentum that will build our careers and build our understanding and help us tune into the needs of our customers, the progress we can make in our craft, how we can help our fellow baristas. We become disengaged. And then after we go a number of years where we are just having this constant, like, can't wait to get out of work, I can't wait to be on my cell phone, where we're just not paying attention to our work, and we're trying, even when we're not on our phone, we're thinking about being on our phone. We then wonder, well, why am I not happy in my job? It's because all your best attention was focused on being outside of where you are right now. And I'm talking to people who take their job in coffee seriously. I realize not every barista takes their job seriously, and not every barista you manage will do so either. But it is, I think, wise to have a policy that says no cell phones behind the bar. And again, I don't know if this is going to be controversial with anybody, but it could be like me just being an old man yelling at the iCloud. But, we are in a time where I feel like the most beneficial thing that you could do for your business to set it apart is to be so great at attention to detail and service and hospitality. And so attention is your greatest asset. Intentionality with that is the key. Cell phones don't really offer very much in way of opportunity for that. And we got to be careful with it. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. So thanks very much for listening. And I'm interested in your thoughts as always. Let me know if I'm off track, if I'm on track. But thank you for joining me nonetheless. And I will see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break, from keys to the shop.